U.S. Attorney Dina King. We stand by to assist the local law enforcement partners and also support our law enforcement involved in today's shooting any way we can. And our thoughts and prayers are with law enforcement to our partners, and we are monitoring this situation.
And we want to head back out now live to Daniel Pierce. Daniel, we understand that you have some new information that you just learned. You're there in the area, very close to the neighborhood as to where the shooting erupted this afternoon. We do know that one person, the suspect, is dead. We also know that a U.S. Marshal has now died. What else are you learning at this hour?
Yeah, I mean, and that's heartbreaking news. Just again, speaking with some of the people that are out here, and even some people I've had a chance to speak with an individual throughout this whole time, just giving me insight that he, aspires to be a law enforcement officer. He comes from a family of law enforcement officers, and he was giving me insight and helping me break down some of what we were hearing on the scanner traffic. I cut a little portion of it. It's about 16 seconds, beginning at the moment whenever officers arrived and they started receiving gunfire. For the control room, if you guys wouldn't mind, take a listen to this.
In my house, and I heard a spray array of gunshots. I didn't really know, where it was coming from. And then I heard all the helicopters, which is not usual because helicopters fly over all the time. But they were kind of just circling the area. And I'm guessing when I came out for my daily bike ride, I used to go down this way, and it was just a line of cops.
So that was actually an interview that I had with a man who lives in this area. We're going to try and get the scanner traffic to you guys momentarily. But that was a conversation I had. In fact, he was one of the first people that I spoke with whenever I arrived on scene. His name was Wesley King, and he lives about 2 blocks away. And he told me that he was, starting his day, about to take his afternoon bike ride down the Galway Drive. And that's whenever he heard the sound of gunshot, and as he was riding his bike down this way, he stopped. He saw a line of police cars. Then he stopped, and he's like, I can't go any further. And that's whenever everything started to click as well. You can see some vehicles going through, and it looks like the law enforcement officers that have been at this intersection of Galway Drive and Bankston Place are leaving the area. They said that they were going to hold it for as long as they were told. Now it looks as if they were leaving, and it looks as if vehicles are able to go about another block away. It still looks like they're not able to get all the way through to the area where this standoff and shooting took place. But vehicles are able to kind of flow back through, and it looks as if, I don't want to use the word normal, but it looks as if people are trying to get back to some sense, even maybe get out and see what the commotion is. I mean, people out here walking their dogs to give you a sense of what the atmosphere is like. I want to take you back through. We were informed that at 1:48 is whenever officers were responding to this area. They were serving that search warrant, and then they took heavy gunfire. The communication that I hope we're able to get any moment now, what that detailed is officers arriving on scene, officers taking heavy gunfire. At one point they said that they were taking rifle fire as they were hiding behind vehicles, hiding behind portions of the house. It sounded as if one of the officers that was hit, it sounded as if they were in the back of the house. They also heard at parts officers asking for more ammo as they were trying to take on this situation, even calling for backup as they were saying, man down, we have an officer shot. They were calling for vehicles to kind of come and give them some sense of cover to help them get their brothers in law enforcement loaded up to get them to the ambulance or get them to the hospital as quickly as possible so they can start working on them to save them as best they can. And those are just little portions that we have been able to really pick out in this scanner traffic. Again, I spoke with a gentleman. He's been kind of right by my side helping me dissect a lot of this information. And I asked him, I said, hey, having a family that's worked in law enforcement, then seeing this, does that make you second guess it? Does that give you any hesitation? And he said, no. I mean, he looks at it as those are his brothers in law enforcement, and you just got that sense of pride and that longing to want to be on a force to serve this community or serve a community in this way, laying it down and protecting the man beside you. And those are the conversations that I'm having out here with individuals as the people that live in this area say that they're shocked that something like this were to happen. Even though they hear gunfire all the time, they are shocked that it elevated to to this level, and that it may have involved one other neighbor's person that they see every single day while out and about. Again, we're going to stay on scene now that we're able to get a little closer. We're going to try and do that between now and whenever we are going to be live on air next, to see if changing our vantage point may be able to give us a little bit better idea of the landscape of what officers were dealing as they were exchanging gunfires with the suspect. Brian.
Daniel, thanks, and certainly a great account of what's going on there. And yeah, you can see people that were just going by, they're let out in the neighborhood now again, because they'll be able to ride their bikes and kind of digest all the information that they just happened with the deadly shooting that happened.
Yeah, but a lot of terror of not knowing what exactly was happening, if they could go home or if they already were home, what exactly was happening, hearing rifle fire that some officers were taking, just some really scary details there. But we actually have a video from when this all kind of started, right, Alicia?
We do, and we're going to show you that video in a minute, but I do want to really piggyback off what Brian just said. The landscape of what we saw there in Daniel Pierce's live shot. You saw somebody walk their dog. You saw somebody drive by with their bike, and that really shows you this is a community. This was a neighborhood. When I've been monitoring social media all afternoon since that call came in around that 2 o'clock time frame, and you hear people talk about they never thought something like this would happen in their neighborhood, and it just shows you what could possibly happen and how this was just a community that was just really taken off guard. Okay, let's show you the first video that we have here, and this is from Facebook Live that somebody was streaming. I do have to let you know that we had to take the volume down just a little bit, just because we didn't want to air any profanity, but it shows you how tense the moments were as you see those officers. You see, look at that, guns drawn right there, walking by and then potentially running to that scene. Where this video is taken, it's about a block away from where that crime scene actually is, almost kind of in the backyard of what we've been showing you today. The second video I want to take, you're going to hear the commentary from Rodney Baisley, who recorded this video. He's a delivery driver. Take a listen.
Crazy, I'll stop right there. Oh, they busted. Do we take cover? Well, they still shooting, boy. Pray for that man. He out here doing God's work.
And that video right there, as you hear Rodney say, pray for that one man, that's an officer in uniform that they're taking away, just kind of really bringing that point home. I know, Brian, Annie, you both, I'm sure, have covered hostage situations. You've covered crime scenes like this. And it's so important for everybody who is out there to take cover, because you never know where the bullets are going to be aiming. You don't know where they're coming from. So much that can happen in that crime scene. And that is why authorities say it's so important for you to stay away, for you to let us do our jobs and bring you the latest of what you need to know. But when you just look at that video, Brian, what comes to your mind as you saw those police officers run and then also bring one of their own out?
Well, knowing that it was a US Marshals serving a warrant there, you had a lot of people involved. That's what happens when you have a warrant investigation on likely a very dangerous criminal that was inside one of the homes. And we're certainly going to have to find out exactly who the other two people were in the house. Did they know that they were harboring a fugitive of some sorts? Or did they, did the guy even, was he from Charlotte? Where is he from? We don't know that kind of information, but in that type of neighborhood right there, you just see all the people that have no idea what's going on when they storm up. But also, we do want to go out to Walter Bowers right now, because Walter, you, former police officer, lawyer in town, you've also know these type of situations that can happen. When you saw some of that video when the shooting broke out, what does that say to you?
Well, that says a lot to me. It says it's the constant reminder of the danger that our officers face on a daily basis. As your reporting has discovered, these particular marshals were out, and their job was simply to go after some of the most dangerous individuals in the country, and they were doing their job. And when those shots rang out, I could just tell you from personal experience, law enforcement as well as military, there's this moment of shock. But if you look carefully at the video, They quickly responded to their training by sharing and telling everyone to take cover, and then they started to handle business. And so we're certainly proud of the way that that they appear to have conducted themselves. Again, nobody knows all of the details, but from what we've seen thus far, it looked like all of our men and women handled themselves in a great manner in light of what they were facing.
And Walter, since we checked in with you, what's now a couple hours ago, we've learned that one suspect in the home was found deceased. We know that one US Marshal is deceased. What do investigators do now? What does that scene look like? How long are they going to be there? And what kind of questions do they have to ask these other two people who were also said to be inside that home?
Well, they're going to be on the scene for quite a while. Really, everywhere that those rounds landed become a part of the crime scene. Then they also have to discover what, if any, involvement those other individuals had that were inside that residence. Were they complicit? Were they held captive? A lot of questions and things of that nature. And so they'll be there conducting an investigation. It sometimes makes you feel as if, since the suspect is dead, that there's not a lot to investigate. Well, in reality, they have to do just as much work, whether or not that individual is taken into custody or if the individual ends up deceased. So they'll be doing a lot of work, and it's going to take quite some time before we have all of the answers.
And Walter Bowers, I just want to ask you a couple things, because you have just such a great account for, because you're an attorney now, but you were an officer at one point in terms of understanding. When you have U.S. Marshals arrive on the scene, potentially how much backup do they have? Because they know the charges that they're, as to why they're there. But take us through that, of what you're able to let us know. And I know that we need to protect the integrity of the case specifically for this, but just so people can have some insight, because you had 30, 40 officers that arrived at the scene within minutes.
Yes, sure. I will give a basic scenario because we don't know all of the facts, and cases like this are very fact specific.
Right.
Generally speaking, what happens is that when you have a situation where you have an individual that has outstanding warrants, there's an assessment made all the way down to what CMPD officers do every day. This is a person that has some outstanding traffic tickets that are nonviolent, or is this a person that is wanted for a homicide? And based on that initial assessment, and that's going to determine what happens next. If it's a violent criminal, and especially one that has weapons or that's evaded law enforcement before, well, that's going to take a different approach. It's going to probably take a plan. And part of that plan is probably, first and foremost, being able to identify and confirm where this individual is. And that may take some intelligence gathering and things of that nature. Once they identify where the individual is, generally speaking, you'd like to place a perimeter around that place. And a perimeter would be essentially anywhere that suspect could ingress or egress, right? So all of the roads, all of the places that a person could go, you want to make a big circle, if you will, around it. And then you'll have your tactical officers that would make an approach in the event that it was a violent suspect that was known to be violent. And it's in those moments where this happens every day. And more often than not, there is not violence. But unfortunately, too many times these days, these are the moments where individuals, instead of turning themselves in, they engage law enforcement. And that's when things get quite dangerous.
Talking about quite dangerous here, when they walk up to a house, what are they thinking, or what's their mode of operation when they do go up and knock on somebody's door? Are they coming in from back? How does that go?
Well, yeah, even a patrol officer is taught about the danger of approaching a front door, right? You know, officers have to be very careful about standing in front of a front door. Officers are trained to look around and use all of their senses as they are approaching, look, listening, feeling, things of that nature. And then it depends on the type of approach that was decided upon. There could be a tactical entry, no knock entry, things of that nature. There could be a knock followed by forced entry. So it's just really dependent upon the intelligence and really dependent on the suspect. But there's a lot of things going through their mind because they are fully aware that at any moment, the suspect could see them and they can't see the suspect, which certainly put the officers in a great disadvantage.
We have one more question for you, just briefly, if you can explain this, because as watching the scene, I was curious to find out why would they not put up crime scene tape around the area of which they knew was the perimeter? And then my other question for you is, as you're seeing the video, it seems like they went behind where the crime scene was instead of in front. Any insight you can give us as to why that would have been the tactical way to be able to maneuver the situation?
Yeah, sure. So when you're going to approach or apprehend a suspect, even though there are a lot of officers involved, the best thing that an officer has going for him or her is the element of surprise, right? And you want to be swift as well. And so usually a perimeter is going to consist of officers using their patrol vehicles and things of that nature, kind of surrounding and being able to kind of see and communicate via radio. But you wouldn't really have the time, and you'd also be putting yourself at a disadvantage putting up crime scene tape. So crime scene tape is usually used when the scene is secure and now you're in the process of collecting evidence. So now you're seeing a crime scene tape. In regards to your second question, what happens, to be quite honest with you, is when shots begin to be fired, you really have no idea where they are coming from because you have buildings, right? And so firearms tend to echo. And so you may think it's in front of you, you may think it's behind you. So probably what we saw was officers just essentially looking for anywhere they could to take cover as trying to assess what was going on in that moment.
And Walter, we're waiting on a press conference here from authorities to give us some more information. Question two, when the two suspects that are in the house, what kind of questioning is going to happen with those right now that were taken out of the house after this incident?
Oh yeah, that's going to be quite a few questions. First and foremost, trying to identify what, if any, involvement those individuals had. What did they know? What should they have known as it relates to this individual's outstanding warrants? What, if any, support did they provide prior to law enforcement getting there? Because certainly if they did allow this individual to reside there or whatever the case may be, I'm not sure who was the actual resident there, but if they were engaged in any capacity, they'd certainly be facing some felony charges. And then what's worse is we don't know their involvement, if any, because we don't know that they may have had as it relates to the shots being fired. So all of those things are going to be investigated. I can guarantee you they probably would swab their hands and things of that nature for gun powder. I mean, just checking every block. They're not going to leave any stone unturned. They're going to check cell phone records to see was there some type of communication before, during, or after. They're going to do a lot just to see what these individuals may have been doing while all of this was taking place.